I want to begin by telling you a few things about me off the bio and resume stats that were already recounted. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the shared history of the Crowell family and also the Biola University. It's an interesting one. I'll share some brief comments about the company that I work for and what I think is a very exciting opportunity in the field of wealth management and investment banking today, but also some concerns I have and some worries I have. And then I'm going to turn the tables. And I want you to do a little bit of introspection, and hopefully a couple of challenges that I pose to you will give you the takeaway value that you'll be scratching your head on as you walk back to your home or your car or wherever you came from tonight. So time permitting, we're going to have time for a little bit of Q&A afterwards with Gary. So here we go. So first of all, who am I? Well, I need to begin by reintroducing an incredible woman who is really the reason I am here, and that is Suzanne Crowell. And I don't want you to let that wheelchair she's sitting in mislead you. This woman is a gentle giant. And just a few of the things, and I could spend the whole talk talking about her and what she's accomplished. She followed her children through our activities, so she became the first president of Little League in the city of San Marino. Female president, I should say. She mobilized a group of hundreds of parents to paint San Marino High School blue and white when the only thing the state could issue was Army surplus green. And she said that we're not going to stand for that, and she mobilized hundreds of parents to literally paint a high school. She served on the city council, as was said, for 12 years, 4 of those as mayor. She organized and spoke at several missionary conferences in Argentina. She organized and led for many, many years the annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast in the city of San Marino. She is a Biola Ruby woman, and I could go on, but she's my mom and I love her, and I am glad that we get a chance to recognize her. Thank you, Mom. Okay, so a few facts and figures, and I'm going to rifle through this quickly. Yes. I grew up in San Marino, went to San Marino High School, but I then attended Stanford University where I studied economics. As you will learn in just a few moments, I have a daughter who's a sophomore at USC, and last weekend's football game was quite painful for me. But she didn't needle her dad, so I didn't have to give her a timeout. I was not sure what I wanted to do at that time, but I had spent my junior year as an undergraduate living in France in the Loire Valley. I am fluent in French, and I was studying business in France, and I thought I would love to go to graduate school overseas somewhere, and maybe I could open up some connections for work after school. Well, as luck would have that, it wasn't possible. Those were days of Margaret Thatcher. Getting a work visa was very difficult, so my plan was to come back to Southern California, get a job with hopefully a large multinational corporation, preferably in entertainment, and work in the business side of entertainment and maybe have opportunities to travel through that. Well, as the Lord would have it, that wasn't the plan either. I ended up meeting a gentleman who was the chief financial officer of this place called Russ Reed Company. This was an advertising agency that still exists today under a different name, but it existed to bring Madison Avenue capabilities and marketing strategies to nonprofit organizations that heretofore wouldn't have been able to afford that level of sophistication or expertise. And through economies of scale, through gang-run prints and so forth, we were able to use creative direction, hopefully to rival what large corporate clients would have normally required to the not-for-profit sector to get the right message to the right person at the right time. That was the goal back then. That was very primitive database marketing days and the like. But far cry from a multinational entertainment company, but a very fortuitous one, as I met a young woman in the traffic department who is now my wife of 27 years. So as I told my father, who wondered why I ever went anywhere other than Crowell Weedon, he got a daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren out of the deal, so it was a pretty good detour. It also instilled in me just the significance of how work can be fulfilling in much deeper ways than financially. Doing well by doing good and doing work that makes an impact globally. Our clients were World Vision, Prison Fellowship, Habitat for Humanity, American Cancer Society. The list went on and on. But just these incredible organizations that were trying to change the lives of people. Serving organizations that serve people was the corporate motto, and that was just a seminal part of my early professional career, realizing I want to do something that matters, really matters. For a whole variety of reasons that I won't get sidetracked with, about 7 years in, I started getting antsy and thinking maybe it's time to do something different. And I certainly hadn't mastered advertising, but I decided I will consult with all of the wisest business people I knew, starting with Don Crowell Sr., because he was running a company and he'd probably have some important wisdom to share. Probably won't surprise you that we never talked about anything other than Crowell, Weedon and Company, and I started there about 7 months later, and that was 1995. What I realized there was the stewardship that a financial advisor is doing with clients' assets. Families, small business owners, not-for-profits were bringing their treasure that they had worked so hard to accumulate, and they have financial goals. Can you shepherd these resources for me so that I can retire on time, so I can put my children through school, so that we can buy that vacation home we dream of, so that we can live the retirement the way we were hoping to? I realized, gosh, dealing with people's money, that's a little window into their heart, their soul, seeing how tightly they clench that money as they hand it over. That was part of really an eye-opener to say, gosh, is your 401k where you're putting your trust, or are you hoping you'll be raptured before you tap it? You know, it was just eye-opening to me, so very meaningful. 2013, we saw an opportunity to scale up in a meaningful way, and I'll talk about in a minute, 2 Western U.S. firms locking arms to create the largest independent investment firm in the Western United States. And we are now called D.A. Davidson. And yes, I miss the Crowell Weedon name greatly. My present responsibilities I'll tell you about in a minute. But this is what really drives me every day. This is my family. That's my son Thomas next to me. He's a graduate of Marist College last May. He was a video game design major, so he does all things digital, and he repairs my phone when I do something and I can't get it back to the home page. So that's my wife Carrie in the middle, the traffic coordinator that I met at Russ Reed, and that's my daughter Christine on the far side. She is a sophomore at USC pre-med. I believe she is going to go the direction of animal medicine. She spent the summer working 2 months at a veterinary hospital, and I think human medicine may have fallen down the ladder a little bit. She just loved her job. She's also a dance minor, so she's a medical dancing ballerina. It's a crazy combination, and I love it. So a little bit about our firm. D.A. Crowell Weedon started in 1932 in downtown Los Angeles. D.A. Davidson started in 1935 in the bustling metropolis of Great Falls, Montana. Today we have 90 offices in 25 different states. We have 360 financial advisors who do the wealth management business I was describing. Almost 1,400 employees, revenues just shy of $500 million. And clients are entrusting almost $50 billion of their money for us to steward. The green states are where we have offices, and the little yellow dots inside them is the cities where we have those offices. And you say, gosh, if this is a Western U.S. firm, why do you have all those states on the right side of the grid? Well, clearly you can see the concentration in the West. The California offices, those were all the Crowell Weedon ones. The Montana, Idaho, Washington State, Oregon, those were D.A. Davidson offices. And if you haven't, the state of Montana has an entire population of about 2 million people. So if you want to grow a firm and you're headquartered in Montana, you have to begin looking outside your borders. And Davidson did many, many decades ago. And they envied the population density we have in Southern California. They say, boy, you can drive 10 minutes away and it's a totally different area code, zip code, and population center, so we can grow in California now. Most of those offices on the right-hand side of the screen in the east, those are investment banking offices. We do a significant amount of underwriting, both for private equity companies, but also municipalities, hospitals, school districts, and the like. And if you're an investment banker doing, hospital bonds in Florida, you have to have a presence there. So those might be offices with simply 2 or 3 investment bankers in them. But that's what a lot of those offices in the East show. So what does D.A. Davidson do? I serve on the holding company board that has 4 operating subsidiaries. D.A. Davidson and Company is the one on the top that comprises the wealth management division, our equity capital markets business, which is where we do mergers and acquisitions, initial public offerings, investment banking deals, taking companies that are private to the public market or finding a buyer or a seller for them so that they can meet their objectives. We do the same thing on the fixed income side. Last year we did almost 450 different bond deals in just North America, and you probably never heard of D.A. Davidson. Our sweet spot are the 15 to 50 million bond underwritings that Goldman Sachs probably wouldn't buy a plane ticket to go out and visit in Butte, Montana. But for us, it's in our backyard. We also have fixed income management, which we manage mutual funds and separate accounts for large tax-free clients who are looking for tax-free income. These would be large pension funds, might be a retirement fund for LA County Fire Department, for example. Davidson Investment Advisors does the same thing on the equity side. They are a registered investment advisor that does separate account management for large endowments, pensions, and the like. And then lastly, we have a trust company, and that's becoming an even bigger focus for our firm as families are looking at things like intergenerational wealth transfer. They're looking at philanthropy plans. They're looking beyond single generations, and they're trying to steward their assets across generational timelines, and so they look for trust expertise to come along. The trust company started in Montana when a lot of ranchers and farm owners were needing to transfer their family asset to the next generation, and that capability obviously has relevance in California as well. Oops, I jumped the gun. So what about all that? Those are just metrics. That's what our company is by those businesses that we're in. But what really gets the advisors out of bed every day? It's that responsibility that clients are entrusting to us to protect and grow their assets. This is albeit in this crowd, you may think it silly for me to say it, but I think it's a very high and noble calling. We have the ability to pull a Bernie Madoff and rob people of their hard-earned assets and ruin their family and generations and reputations, or we have the opportunity to help them achieve those goals they've set out for themselves. And that, for us, is what gets us out of bed every day. It used to be raising money for great nonprofit organizations, and now it's for families, people with names and faces that I know are counting on me to wake up and be at the top of my game every day. I've learned a lot in this business. Having done this now for 25 years, it really grieves me that there is a sentiment in the public eye and in the media that Wall Street is the problem. Our firm, D.A. Davidson, and many, many firms like ours in the industry started because we wanted to be part of the solution. We wanted to help families. And to have that turned on its head and to have this huge gulf between Main Street and Wall Street, it really grieves me. Because if we're not part of the solution, if we really are part of the problem, then why am I showing up to work every day? That's not why I changed careers out of advertising. If we're delivering on our value proposition of helping our clients, whether they be individuals or companies, I'd hope that we're helping in our small way of the Western United States of bridging that gap between Wall Street and Main Street. And as long as our clients are successfully achieving their outcomes, that's the responsibility that we've been entrusted with. But what else? These are some things I get really excited about, and it's a little trailer of what I brought from Russ Reed Company over to D.A. Davidson. Because we have advisors that think the way I just described, it wouldn't surprise you that they're deeply plugged into their communities. They serve on school boards, they're volunteering at local nonprofits, they're doing a lot of great things in their community. So we needed an executive to help sort of coalesce that and see if as a company we couldn't put some framework around it, and I was asked to lead that charge. Very proud, you can't really see it, but there in the upper right, this last summer we just completed our second year of doing a financial literacy program in the inner city. We partnered with Boys and Girls Clubs, the Metropolitan YMCA, and we are delivering basic financial literacy programming to teenagers who are not getting this education at home. They're not getting taught this information in school, and these are children that are going to be going off to college. They all have a smartphone. They're zellying money left and right. They're buying stuff on Amazon, and we want to get in front of that and hopefully get them launched on a smart trajectory. So the MoneyWise financial literacy program is a new thing that I was able to bring to the firm. D.A. Davidson Day today and for the next 7 days. Our firm is having D.A. Davidson Day 2013. It's our 2019. It's our third annual. We will have, get this, 1,100 employees logging about 4,500 service hours on behalf of over 100 different not-for-profits in 70 different markets across the country. And while that sounds amazing, and it is, I will tell you, it was a layup for me to simply put a little structure around it and watch the generosity of these employees who just said, absolutely, let's go do it. And so I'm really exciting. Our Twitter feed's going to be blowing up for the next couple of days with pictures of people doing work all over the country. That's a picture from last year in the lower right. And then this gal on the left, she's got her finances chart. She was one of the girls in the MoneyWise program. Finally, the philanthropy tab there. Last year, we wrote in terms of checks. We put our money where our mouth was. We actually have a percentage of our gross profits every year that we contribute directly back into the communities. Last year, we wrote checks for $1.5 million back into the local communities where we have offices. And I don't know if that sounds like a big figure to you or not, but it's a meaningful figure. Part of that is an employee gift matching program where we matched every employee's gift up to a certain level of what was important to them, just to show alignment with our folks. I'm proud to work for a company that exhibits culture this way and not just financial tote board, which is so much the typical of Wall Street norms. So quickly, about that shared history. You all recognize Lyman Stewart there in the center. And that was one of the original locations of the Bible Institute of Los Angeles there in the upper left. And that photograph there was on the Jubilee celebration in 1958 of Biola's 50th. And on the left, or to the right of the cake, you will see Lula Mae Crowell Stewart. Lula Mae was my great-great aunt. So my father's aunt was Lula Mae Crowell. And so I'm just going through the great lines there. But Lula Mae was Lyman Stewart's second wife, and she had worked as his assistant at Union Oil for 11 years. And that was the first connection between the Crowell family and Biola. And kind of amazing. And so now we have a Crowell School of Business, compliments of Susie Crowell, who wanted to reconnect the Crowell family with the university upon the passing of my father in 2004. So, meanwhile, a few blocks to the east, this was in the early 30s, Warren Crowell, in the center top there, founded the firm of Crowell, Weeden and Company on Spring Street, just about 2 doors down from the LA Stock Exchange, which is the building you see on the left. We were started in 1932, and so that was another significant event that happened in the Coliseum that summer, the 1932 Olympic Games. And so when the Olympics came back to Los Angeles in 1984, our firm ran a series of ads in newspapers and magazines that said, "Where were you in '82?" to celebrate our founding in 1932, but also to recognize that big milestone, which maybe was a little bit bigger than the founding of Crowell Weeden, I don't know. And in the upper right is the late Don Crowell Sr., my father. He stewarded the firm. Warren Crowell ran along with his partner George Weeden up until the early 70s, at which point my father took the helm in the early 70s, and then he passed away all too soon, quite unexpectedly in 2004. And so I became only the third managing partner in Crowell Weeden's history. at that time. And then it was 2013 when we did the merger with D.A. Davidson. So we're going to circle up and wrap this thing up. Enough about me, enough about what I do. I'm hopeful this is where the loaves and fishes multiplication is going to start happening. I tried to think of what I could say that if you're a student here and you're looking out at the whole road ahead and not too sure of you have all the answers or not too sure exactly what God would have you do in your business career, or maybe it's not even a business career, maybe it's taking the business principles you've learned here into a different field entirely. So I want to leave you with three things, hoping one of the three just may resonate with you. Doesn't matter which of the three. One is a perspective, and then the second is going to be a purpose, and the last will be a practice. So perspective, purpose, and practice. So what's the perspective piece? I hope as my whirlwind life story displays to you, your journey and career path may not resemble anything like a straight line. In fact, it would be surprising if you have it all figured out right now and you end up exactly where you think you're going to end up right now. And it would be normal for you not to know. I thought I was going to work for the Walt Disney Company. Didn't happen that way, and I'm glad. What I learned is that even with all the twists and turns and detours, doesn't mean you're going to the wrong destination. You know, I was thinking about it. I'm not sure the Israelites would have expected to be enslaved for 400 years. That doesn't sound like the chosen people plan. And upon Exodus release, wouldn't have thought wandering in a desert for 40 years would have been part of the plan, but it was. You know, I'm not sure shepherds expected an angelic visitation out in the field just watching. Twists and turns, this is normal in life. And course corrections, burning bushes, they happen, and yet they also don't mean you're off course. So if you're wondering where you're going, welcome to the club. None of us knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's just part of the plan. So what about the purpose? You have this verse emblazoned in the lobby. It's Colossians 3:23 and 24. You know, whatever you do, whether in business, whether in art, whether in music, philosophy, psychology, whether you go back into academics, whatever you do it as unto the Lord. If that gives you a sense of purpose, whatever I do, Jesus didn't come and say, these 5 occupations are what you should do. No, he pulled disciples that were in the food service industry, in the medical industry, in the financial industry. Heck, he himself was a carpenter. He didn't focus on what you do, it was how you do it. Do it as unto the Lord. So whatever your path, even if you don't have a clear mindset right now, set that as your purpose. I think that gives meaning to life. So what's the practice? It's hard to live that purpose sometime. So what's the practice? I would put it simply this way. Aim to leave situations better than when you arrived. Aim to leave situations, whether it's a workplace, it's a relationship, it's a public park, it's your office, it's your church, it's your small group. Aim to leave places better than when you came. It might mean something as simple as making your bed or cleaning up a common area in your dorm. It might mean making a kind word to a janitor you see working really hard to clean up the grounds when you're walking back to your dorm room after a long day. It might mean calming a little bit of an argument that you see between 2 friends. But I think if you can, in doing whatever you do as unto the Lord, keep as a central focus, how can I make this better than when I was here? You know, some of us look at that from the grave backwards and say, I want to leave a mark. You know what? I do too, but I want to leave a mark every single day. And that client who called me today at 12:30 before I left and said, our daughter's in trouble, what should we do? that's where I needed to be right then. And I wanted to make that situation better. So I'm not saying what you should do, I'm just saying strive to leave situations and relationships better than when you arrived.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.